Hey, how's it going, everybody? Jeremiah Nickel on YouTube, aka JT Nickel on Reddit, at ProDJKC on Twitter. I've been waiting to do this video for a long time. I have a friend of mine I've become a lot close with over the last few months. His name is Dan Conway, and he just did an AMA, or not an AMA, but an interview with Crocodile Mansion Kobe. Who's also just a great contributor to the Ethereum space. And so Dan Conway has written a book that is now out, and I can finally make a video review of it. By the way, this is not a paid endorsement, okay? This is just simply an endorsement of an awesome piece of work that he wrote that really captures a lot of the feelings many of us had in Ethtrader back in the days of the Ethereum rise out of 2015 all the way to the all-time high of 1400 or whatever it was. So Dan Conway has written a book called Confessions of a Crypto Millionaire. It's available now on Amazon, and he's also got an audiobook version. I think it's like $3. You should definitely take advantage of getting it, and it's an enjoyable read. You'll find a lot of commonalities there, especially if you were there in the early days. Even if you weren't there in the early days, it's an excellent read. Now, I was lucky enough to get the version that this is not the current cover. This is the old cover. This was the original cover that they were going to go with, and then they opted for a new cover, and I like the new cover better too. So, but here was the cool thing, and I kept my mouth shut about this. I mentioned it maybe once in the sub back on Ethtrader before ETH Finance, but I got this bound copy, right, with the binder and stuff, and Dan sent this to like 6 people or some small number. It was less than 10 people got a chance to read it, to review it, to help give him some feedback, point out any editing problems, or grammar or whatever. And so, but it's so well done, and he's had help from an editor to get this together. And I'll be honest, there were so many faces that stood out in the old days. Dan was under a different username back in the old days, and he reached out to me later on, but I did not corroborate the 2 usernames. When he reached out to me about a year and a half or so ago, he was just asking about some of my thoughts, and because I've been, obviously on the sub forever before we moved to ETH Finance, and wanted to get some facts straight, but I didn't know he was writing a book. I mean, I knew he was writing a book, but I didn't know he was a crypto millionaire. Does that make sense? So the title of the book is Confessions of a Crypto Millionaire, and upon first looking at that title, I was thinking, oh, okay, cool, he made it, wow. And he said, well, I was going to be in his book, and I am, and it just kind of has a lot to do with the food meme posts that I do, and of course the discussion of donuts back then, which fully credited to CYO Nessie, who ironically is being interviewed or doing an AMA on ETH Finance. DC Investor made a sticky post, and Cyrus Unessi, or CYO Unessi from Maker, is the guy that originally said the word donuts back at around $12. He said, if we hit $13, I'll celebrate by eating a donut. And the whole place just lost their mind, probably me more than anyone. And then it just ended up being a thing where Friday I would post pictures of donuts or whatever. So that was just kind of some of the little charm things that Dan gravitated to. And he reached out to a lot of old timers and got some input from us. Here's the thing. When you look at a title like Confessions of a Crypto Millionaire, and then the subtitle is My Unlikely Escape from Corporate America, immediately the wealth was there for him to never have to work again. And that seems to be, for a lot of people, it seems to be a big motivation. I don't know anything about corporate America. All I know is how to teach little kids how to do music. That's what I do. And so I don't know what the pain of working in crypto or corporate America must be like. I will say this: they make more movies about how bad that is than they do how bad it is working as an elementary school music teacher. Does that make sense? There's not a lot of similarities between the two. When you go into the book, though, you realize there's other things at play here, and I think that the escape from corporate America, ultimately was a goal of his. However, this he's got a lot of back history too that's not so great, and he is, and there's the key word, confessions. He kind of puts it all out there for you in a way that the dude battles some demons. And so he has this alter ego that he refers to in the book quite a bit called Flip Side. And everybody's got a little bit of flip side. Flip side is, for him, was massive drug addiction and alcoholism. And I think the grind of corporate life and all those things, he knew that he was going to have to go get help. There's a large portion of this book that was about him keeping secrets from his wife and nearly losing it all due to his addictions. And I know as a moderator, I mean, we see this sometimes on Reddit. All of us do, not just moderators. I mean, you see it too, where there's people on there that you could tell they're not all together upstairs. Okay, so then he kind of got into rehabilitation and getting his stuff together. And then he found this passion in writing. I want to read this one spot in here. It says, "For most real people I knew in corporate America, some of whom worked at those billionaire companies, it was about making enough money to get out. The people in the growing financial independent subreddits had an exact dollar amount in mind. Writing entered my mind as something I was good at and I could do in my spare time and might lead to something lucrative eventually. Flip Side couldn't foul me up with anxiety attacks when I was writing like he could when I was talking." So earlier in the book, he talks about, being in front of people and messing up while he was talking. And then he says, "I discovered Medium, a new blogging platform where unknown writers could be noticed for the quality of their work. In the past, I never had the discipline to follow through with personal writing projects, but now with Medium, I found an audience that turned out to be the missing incentive. I began with a shy piece about the leadership lessons I learned running a foot race near my house, and a few people read it. Then I wrote about the time my mother vetoed my father's expensive dental treatment when he was terminally ill, and that generated a good deal of interest. As I'm prone to do, I became obsessed." There we go. So many of us are, we all have obsessions, don't we? "In 2015, I wrote 56 pieces, more than 60,000 words with 125,000 views. I overdid it. I wrote in the morning, I wrote at night, I wrote on vacation. In fact, Eileen and the kids still joke about how I skipped our last dinner on the last night of one of our family vacations because I was making a final edit to a blog post I was particularly proud of titled, 'You probably have low testosterone.' My pieces became increasingly edgy. They were picked up by Business Insider, Fatherly.com, Q Point, and a number of other publications. Craig Newmark of Craigslist recommended my story, quote, 'Silicon Valley wealth and my crappy car,' end quote. One of Dick Cheney's daughters started following me. Yeah, I was a big deal. Finally, writing and finding an audience scratched my itch for prominence, and it was also a hell of a lot of fun." So there you go. That's kind of like his cathartic way of getting out of his addictions. And he was into exercise, and he just really made a full 180. But then he talks about the subreddit and the euphoria that was going on the ups and the downs, So he writes, "ETH's price was rising at an unprecedented pace over a period of days and weeks rather than the expected months and years. Anecdotally, from the comments on Ethtrader, it seemed like a lot of large investors had a sell target of $400. Okay, so this would have been the summer was it the summer of 2016 or so, or 2017? I can't remember when it seems like we hit like $420. He said people who'd invested in the crowd sale and other whales who'd gotten in under $5 suddenly had life-changing money. They started running for the doors. On June 24th, ETH took a dive. From an all-time high of $400, it spat up, then puked up its gains. It was like a sick animal that might very well die. Those selling their ETH disgusted me. For months, I'd seen the same people claiming, quote, I wish I'd heard about this a year ago. I would have bought a big stash. Oh, BS. Now that ETH was headed back down, their FOMO had turned to FUD. These run-of-the-mill conventional thinkers and cowards were bleeding us dry. Now more than ever, true believers needed to hodl. Anything else would cause a tragedy of the commons, when each individual's supposedly rational action leads directly to total destruction for everyone, including them. By June 27th, it was at $272, a 40% decrease in 5 days. So then it goes on from there. And then it declined again. And then on the big run up, and I'll just summarize, quickly. On the big run up on the way up, he was selling in chunks, and he was able to get out with a large sum of money. He's still in, though. I'll say that. He's still a holder too. So, and I've talked to Dan a few times on the phone, and he took a break after he made some money, and rightfully so, and traveled a bit and paid attention to his family and his work. And but it's like he started talking to me again, and a few of us other old timers, and now he's just like, wow, this is still amazing. Just it's in a different set of glasses now. And then he talks also about how his life, he wonders if it paralleled with his grandfather, and I'm going to leave it at that. Get this book, just do it, read it, buy a copy, and take it all in. There's no book like this, because there's no sub like Ethtrader was back then, right? And so it just nailed it on the head for so many reasons. But I tell you what, man, Dan went through a lot of stuff to get, where he is today. And I'm sure it's still work every day, right? Having a lot of money helps alleviate a lot of problems, but it doesn't eliminate everything, right? So, and I'm just speculating, but man, I was so touched that he reached out, and I told him, I said I'd make a video for him and see what comes of it. And so hats off to you, Dan. Congratulations. Hats off to the rest of you guys that were able to make something out of the last bull run. And we're going to have another one sooner or later. Confessions of a Crypto Millionaire, Dan Conway, my unlikely escape from corporate America. It's cheap. It's worth the read. Anyway, cheers. Big hugs from Kansas City.